Welcome everyone and welcome to our Tech Up Talks. Happy Tuesday. It's October 13th already. It's unbelievable how quickly this year's gone by. Today our topic is creating a healthier building, a fireside chat with Kandice Cohen and Leigh Huther of Trane Technologies. Before we begin, I'd love to give you a little background on both Leigh and Kandice. And one second, I'm going to give you Leigh Huther offers more than 15 years experience in strategic marketing, brand strategy and development, activation and management. Her specialties include M&A, brand strategy development and integration, brand portfolio management, integrated marketing communications. She offers B2B experience, unlocking the potential of leading brands such as Trane Technologies, Ingersoll Rand, and Trane. She recently led Trane in refreshing its icon brand to align more closely with the organization's strategic vision and goals as it moves forward under the new parent company, Trane Technologies. So welcome, Leigh. Now, Kandice is the Director of Lighting Strategy, Trane Commercial HVAC Americas at Trane Technologies. Kandice has spent her career focused on the science of illumination and controls to enhance the quality of the lit environment for the benefit of occupants, as well as to maximize energy savings that achieve the goals of building owners and efficiency programs. She has provided career coaching for peers and invested her time into the promotion of efforts to engage girls in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. As the Director of Lighting Strategy for Trane Commercial's HVAC, part of Global Climate Innovator Trane Technology, Kandice focuses on bridging the gap so that these systems no longer live in silos. The industry is now poised to begin the smart building revolution, a vision that has been and continues to be Kandice's life work. Kandice, congratulations, was recently awarded the distinct honor of being one of 3 women selected by LED's magazine as part of 40 Under 40 inaugural class of 2020. Welcome, Kandice and Leigh. It's a pleasure to have you here. To our audience, we will be taking questions at the end. So before I turn it over, please, any questions, put them into the Q&A and we'll try to address as many as we can after the presentation. I'd like to welcome Kandice and Leigh, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. So Kandice, if you want to go ahead and share the presentation. So thanks, Cecilia. We are so excited to be here today and joining all of you virtually. The topic that we chose to discuss today is one that we as a company have been discussing for a long time, but not until just recently has caught up with us to be in the mainstream media. We're all either back to our offices or figuring out how to get back to our offices. We're navigating whether or not it's safe to go back into our stores and gyms. And even more timely, some of us have kids whose schools are considering how they safely reopen without compromising energy costs. Which brings us to the start of the decade of action. According to the UN, we have just 10 years to take actions that are going to transform our world. That includes 10 years to cut emissions. The emphasis on climate is now beginning to transfer into a discussion about how industries and companies are responding to this new reality. A changed climate, response to pandemics is all the same. Sustainability's annual trends report actually calls out desires to see bolder corporate announcements that are rooted in science and addressing the legacy of a company's operations. One company's actions and commitments could create a domino effect and set expectations for other companies to follow. It'll both accelerate and amplify their positive impact. This is how we really look at it at our company, Trane Technologies. It's been our belief for a while. One company can change the industry, and that industry can help change the world. We'll spend some time today discussing what bold sustainability commitments look like in general, and then we'll share some examples of what that looks like at our company. And then we'll transition into talking about indoor environmental quality, which you'll hear us also calling IEQ. IEQ is entering into the height of discussions right now as we look at adapting our buildings and our homes to be healthier spaces without compromising all of our sustainability and energy efficiency goals. And it fits squarely into this space. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit more about sustainability. The 21st century will bring significant global challenges that all businesses, nation states, and humans will face. The driving factor behind these challenges is a rapidly changing climate. It's true that climate change is a natural process that occurs over hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. But it's also true that carbon emissions are not inherently a bad thing. The problem is that the rate of added greenhouse gases to the atmosphere is far outpacing the planet's ability to absorb those gases and then remove them to maintain a comfortable climate for all life. And that really helps us transition into talking a little bit more about our industry is creating that comfort. The HVAC industry has an opportunity to dramatically reduce a major source of greenhouse gases, contributing to overwhelming the planet's capabilities. Greenhouse gas emissions related to energy consumed by residential and commercial buildings. The emissions from heating and cooling buildings alone accounts for approximately 15% of global annual GHG emissions. And then we take a look at energy in buildings. Buildings consume about 40% of the energy produced in the United States. Additionally, a third of a building's energy use is from HVAC. And energy demand for cooling to create that comfortable space will more than triple by the year 2050. If we're going to help change the world in the next 10 years, then we have to make our goals work harmoniously. At our company, we really don't think about sustainability as a buzzword. It's core to our strategy. Our commitment extends to the environmental impact of our operations, our products, our services, and then our people. We're making really big, bold moves to address a global crisis, and every action we're making is making a difference. Looking ahead over this coming decade, our company has announced extremely exciting 2030 sustainability targets, so I'll use those as our example. There are several major categories that have many goals within each, but I wanted to highlight 3 ways that we're making the right changes. First is the Gigaton Challenge, leading by example, and then third is creating opportunity for all. I'm pretty competitive and I love a good challenge, so I'll go into the Gigaton Challenge in just a second. But first, we're committed to achieving carbon neutrality in our global operations. We've already reduced our emissions intensity significantly in the previous decade. Now we'll go even further to ensure that our company is a net zero carbon emitter by 2030. We're also confident that we can further improve our energy efficiency so much that we expect to continue growing our business and reducing our total energy consumed by 10%. What that means is that by the year 2029, we'll actually consume 10% less energy than we did in our baseline year of 2019. Second, we're putting a major focus on gender parity and diversity in the workplace and investing in STEM education. This is why we're here. Kandice and I were really excited to be asked by Dawn and the Tech Up for Women community to be here because we're 2 women in our company who are passionate about paving the way for others. So I mentioned the Gigaton Challenge. Let me share a little bit more about this goal. I think this one is really exciting. We've announced the first ever commitment to reduce our customers' carbon footprint by a gigaton of emissions. To put this incredibly large number in perspective, 1 gigaton, which is also equal to 1 billion metric tons, is equivalent to the annual emissions of the UK, France, and Italy combined. We're actually the first industrial company to set a goal this substantial, and we look to lead not just our industry, but all industries in committing to something this meaningful and tackling the challenges of climate change. We've committed to our customers that we will provide the full set of solutions to help them dramatically reduce the emissions intensity of their businesses, as we've already proven to be capable of it on our own in our own operations. So clean energy, energy efficiency, and whole building solutions. So I mentioned how we try to look at this as all working harmoniously together. And so I want to share a customer example. One of our customers is Crosstown Concourse in Memphis. Crosstown is a multi-story mixed-use development building with both business and residential. They have over 1,200 pieces of connected Trane equipment inside their space, helping them to do all of the cool things that you would think of when you hear the word connected. Since we started working with them in 2017, they've reduced energy costs and carbon emissions by 3% year over year. They were also able to quickly adapt their systems to account for airflow requirements during the pandemic, making their space both healthy and efficient for their occupants. I'll share one more example related to schools. So our company in Trane is helping schools all over the nation evaluate, implement, and fund indoor air quality improvements. And indoor air quality is really a part of creating a total environmental solution. So their buildings, as they make these improvements and identify areas for opportunity, they can do upgrades to bring teachers, students, and staff back safely into their learning environments. The U.S. Government Accountability Office released a report in June, so just a couple of months ago, showing that while school districts spend billions of dollars a year on building and renovating facilities at nearly 100,000 K-12 public schools nationwide, we still have about half of districts needing to update or replace multiple systems like heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, the industry that we play in. An estimated 1/3 of schools need HVAC system updates. And then finally, funding for school facilities primarily comes from local government sources. So we're really focusing on helping schools get back into session with funding solutions so that we can help shift the conversation to be more about investing in our kids' futures, not just the investment in infrastructure. All kids, teachers, and faculty alike deserve access to safe and healthy environments. Speaking of safe and healthy environments, I mentioned indoor environmental quality earlier in the discussion, IEQ. I'm going to hand it over to Kandice to talk a little bit more about IEQ and what that means.
Thank you so much, Leigh. Buildings today are full of hidden potential. As a leader in indoor environmental quality, or IEQ, we have a unique responsibility to help buildings adapt quickly to this pandemic, creating safe environments so we can find our way to a new normal. We as an organization have made bold commitments over the last decade to reduce the energy intensity of the world, and we're going to continue. Something we really want to drive home, though, is that there's no trade-off necessary between health and efficiency. We see opportunities to implement both harmoniously. Buildings have energy coursing through their veins: heating, cooling, lighting, and more. This energy produces data, and that data is like a language waiting to be translated. As we almost humanize our buildings, the industry is now talking about how healthy they are or aren't. What makes them healthy enough to hold occupants? What are occupants now going to be expecting? The pandemic has driven us to look at how healthy our buildings are and for us to consider what's beyond the building owner or facility manager's goals, to think about the people who occupy the space. Indoor environmental quality has been elevated to the forefront of many conversations. What is IEQ? It's indoor air quality, which we've been talking about for well over a decade, and so much more. Lighting, thermal comfort, acoustics, noise, they all impact people within a space. Through integration and interoperability, we can create the infrastructure of the intelligent building, essentially a system of systems. By focusing on the building occupants, we can create hyper-personalized microzones that support more productive working and learning environments. Think about your most comfortable temperature and light level, and imagine a building that can provide each occupant their own unique and dynamic optimal environment. Not only does this approach lead to better outcomes, but it leads to more energy efficient spaces with reduced carbon footprints. The industry has been knowing that today's buildings make up 90% of the buildings that will exist in 2030 and 80% of the buildings that will exist in 2050, we need to figure out how to apply technology to ensure that these buildings continue to serve our needs both today and well into the future. The good news: technology has existed for a long time to support healthy buildings, and new technology is being developed as we speak. Challenging times often lead to innovation, and with creativity, we can challenge what's possible. The industry has been talking about healthy and efficient spaces for years. With the COVID-19 pandemic, the market is responding and industry needs to meet market demand. We've launched our Center for Healthy and Efficient Spaces to foster collaboration, provide thought leadership through expertise and innovation, and to help support policy and standards that will ensure that we're leveraging holistic solutions so that buildings continue to be both healthy and energy efficient well beyond this pandemic. Think of the systems running simultaneously within our bodies, a sort of system of systems. They each coexist harmoniously. The systems that operate within buildings are much like the systems in our body, and there's so many ways that buildings impact our health. The COVID-19 pandemic begs for disinfection solutions. These can come in many forms, from photocatalytic oxidation to bipolar ionization to UVC irradiation. There are a lot of technologies out there, and it's so important to follow the science to choose the right solution to address the problem. In some cases, the layering together of multiple solutions may lead to the best outcome. But buyer beware, there are a lot of new offerings on the market, so be leery of widgets and products that make grandiose claims that haven't been proven or tested for the specific problem. Some forms of UV irradiation, UVA and UVB as an example, do not inactivate viruses. And while UVC irradiation does, it requires modeling for appropriate placement, duration, dosage, and safety protocols to be both safe and effective. With proper use, UVC irradiation can disinfect the air through an HVAC system or within a space, and can also sanitize surfaces within a space. We have diligently researched proven technology and continue to do so to provide credible subject matter expertise to a marketplace in the midst of the Wild West, where new products and unproven claims are abundant. Trane Technologies has a holistic approach. It's important to first assess the space to identify the right solutions for the unique requirements, then mitigate using many or some of the technologies identified on this slide. Finally, manage and monitor for long-term maintenance and improvement. There's so much more that we can be doing to promote healthy buildings beyond just disinfection. With real-time location services, we can do contact tracing, show free spaces such as conference rooms, and guide people to less occupied areas within a building, all while saving energy. When thinking of IEQ and the convergence of multiple building systems, it's important to realize that 70% of a building's energy use is made up of lighting and HVAC. Imagine being able to have full visibility and control of both systems from a single platform from anywhere in the world, something we've offered customers for well over a decade. We often think of how temperature impacts our comfort, but rarely consider how lighting can affect our health, mood, and well-being. Many people are aware of the photoreceptors in our eyes that control our visual system, our rods and our cones. We also have a third photoreceptor in our eyes that many aren't familiar with, called the IPRGC, or the intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cell. The IPRGC in our eyes regulates our circadian rhythm in response to light by suppressing or producing melatonin, known as circadian entrainment. As we evolved outdoors in natural light, the circadian system in our bodies reacts to the intensity of light, the time of day we receive that light, the duration of time that we receive that light for, and the spectral power distribution of that light. With today's technology, some LED systems can mimic the outdoor environment indoors, similar to the sunrise to sunset cycle of light, changing in intensity and spectral power distribution to help our bodies regulate melatonin production at the appropriate times. This can not only improve our productivity and support learning, but research in spaces from office buildings to schools to the International Space Station show that the right light at the right time can potentially impact our health in positive ways. It's also important to realize that while using technology that can impact people in positive ways, if used improperly, it's possible to potentially have negative impact. That's why relying on trusted, credible experts like Trane Technologies is so important. Who would have thought that our daily news scrolls would be headlining the topics that we've been discussing for over a decade? Who isn't talking about it really? Trusted, relevant media sources are now fueling the news cycle with constant discussion on these topics. Tech Up for Women is talking about it. Even mom blogs are talking about it. Maybe this era will not be remembered solely for the challenges facing us, but for how we shift our thinking to address these challenges, opening us up to thinking about our infrastructure in a whole new light. We must challenge ourselves to center buildings around their occupants and create environments that are both healthy and sustainable. The technology exists today to address both challenges, and the IEQ and sustainability experts at Trane Technologies are here to help guide you to the appropriate solutions to support safe, efficient buildings. I think we're open for questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kandice and Leigh. That was just so informative, especially during these times. We do have quite a few questions here. Okay, the first question is, what is the #1 tech for improving air quality? Organizations and schools have all been saying improved air quality and air circulation. but what is the minimum need? And also, how can organizations measure this and provide information on this?
Yeah, so I can take this one. This is Leigh. Our industry follows all requirements based out of ASHRAE, which is the governing board for our industry. And so those are the minimum requirements that we suggest buildings meet. That's what we align to between the CDC and ASHRAE guidelines. So ASHRAE is continuously updating those guidelines to meet building safety requirements for return to work, and have several recommendations specifically for HVAC. And that's really what the industry is following. The other piece of that is that, we know that most buildings don't operate efficiently in their design state. In fact, we've done thousands of energy audits across the globe, and most buildings operate about 30% inefficiency. So where we like to start is in identifying, what you can do to improve your indoor air quality is with an assessment. We call it an indoor air quality assessment. Simply. And really what that does is that we partner with you to just go through your building and determine what is and is not working efficiently, and make recommendations for improvements. While we're doing the assessment, we look for 4 different things. Dilution, so we call it the 4 pillars of IAQ: dilution, exhaust, containing, and cleaning. Dilution's making sure that plenty of fresh outdoor air dilutes the buildup of indoor contaminants through proper ventilation. Right, so that's where you're hearing a lot of maybe just open the windows, right, where you're getting fresh air from. Exhaust is getting exhaust air out. It's equally important, especially air from kitchens and restrooms and combustion systems and small spaces. Containing, so that's keeping indoor humidity levels within the ASHRAE guidelines. It maximizes the comfort as well as reduces the risk of microbial growth. So a lot of people don't think about that. Earlier in the pandemic, we heard a lot of people turning off their HVAC systems so that there was not a forced flow of air in the buildings. By turning off HVAC systems, you sometimes have a buildup of humidity, which then can cause additional microbial growth. So we don't recommend doing that. And then the last pillar is really around cleaning. So that's reducing the particles, odors, microorganisms, like mold and bacteria and viruses in the system. So every building is really different. And so that's why we start with an assessment. There is no one size fits all solution to a building, which is, Kandice talked a little bit about, well, we have different offerings, but the solution for one building could be completely different than the solution for another building.
Thank you, Leigh. Thank you. Our next question is, does Trane conduct dialogue with impact investing investors and or other capital providers in the impact discipline, and what kind of timeframes are considered for results?
Okay, so I'm just rereading this question here. We may need to follow up with you, Maria,
Okay.
Around conducting dialogue with the impact discipline and what timeframes are considered for results. On this screen here, we added our LinkedIn information, and we'd love to follow up with you with some details related to that question so we can get you some answers.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Another question is, what do you think will be the hardest hurdles to bring our workforce back to full occupancy in 2021?
I really think, and Kandice, please feel free to join in here, but I think that there's going to be something about occupant trust, right? So I think one of the things that we've learned through the pandemic is that there are varying opinions, as well as comfort levels of everybody who's entering into spaces. Mm-hmm. And so really, if you really start focusing on the trust of the occupants within that building, more so that, in our space, we typically talk a lot with engineers and building owners, as well as, facilities managers and facilities directors. And really now we have to really consider who's in the space, and building owners really need to start thinking about who's in the space and the measures that they need to take to ensure the safety not just the comfort anymore, the safety, the healthiness, all of the new requirements that any occupant will have, whether it's a child within a school or a parent sending a child to school, or somebody returning into a large office space or a manufacturing facility. And I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle is figuring out how we build trust with the people who are entering into that building.
Thank you, Leigh. Thank you. A question here is, what does the lead certification mean for air quality?
The LEED certification, Kandice, you want to take that one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can talk about LEED certification in regards to lighting. In regards to IAQ, I'm not sure. Do you know the answer, or should we get back to Kathy?
No, we can get back related to air quality, but if you want to talk about LEED and lighting, I think that would be also interesting, because lighting is something that we don't often think about in the built space.
Absolutely. So LEED certification is really interesting because it gave us a new way of looking at buildings. It wasn't just looking at the sustainability of the building itself. It was looking at how the placement of that building was accessible for people to get to, whether it had showers and bike racks, whether it is close to public transport. So it's thinking about the quality of the experience of people within that space. And so I'd need to dig more into how air quality impacts it, but there are many, many different points that you can get for LEED through lighting and lighting controls, and doing things like providing energy dashboards. What's also really interesting is that there's a follow-up program similar to LEED called Well Buildings. And that's really about creating healthy spaces for people. And it's something that's such a relevant topic today as well. So we're happy to get back to you with a more in-depth answer specific to your question, as well as if you're interested in some information about Well Buildings, we can provide that as well.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. Thank you. We had one question here for Kandice. Tell us about your Girls in STEM initiatives and how can others get involved?
Sure, absolutely. I do a lot of public speaking, and I spoke at a conference where someone who was running the conference actually leads a Department of Energy conference called the Solar Decathlon. And they have it used to be every other year. Now they're doing it every 3 years. I've participated multiple times, and I've had the opportunity to speak to 7,000 K through 12 students about science and technology, engineering, and math. Particularly encouraging young girls to get into these fields, because we know that when you have a more diverse group of people at a conference room table solving problems, that they're going to be more innovative. And so we would love to see more women entering the field of STEM.
That's fantastic.
I was going to add on there, Dawn, we also partner with groups like Junior Achievement and Project Scientist. Project Scientist, we've become even more close with over the past couple of years, and bringing young girls onto our campuses and into our manufacturing plants to see what it's like in the day of the life. And I'm in marketing, so I pretend to be a cool scientist. I tell them I'm a marketing scientist, but you know, we have girls who follow along with our engineers and get to see what it's like to be an engineer, a female engineer in our company. And we love doing that so that we can make sure that we're not just trying to attract females into our company in STEM, but we're also doing a lot to educate and get girls interested at a really young age.
That's fabulous. There's nothing like hands-on experience like that. That's great. Let's see, I think we have time for one more question here, and we'll take one at a time here. How has your career evolved? How, through the years, did you get to the positions where you are today?
You want me to start, Kandice?
Go ahead.
So I've actually worked for this company my entire career. And so I was a business major at Penn State, and I found out about this company, and we recently went through a large business transformation, where part of our company, which used to be called Ingersoll Rand, branched off and became part of a new company called Trane Technologies. So our leading brands are Trane and Thermo King, which people may be familiar with as they see trucks and buses on the roads and see the cooling units. on those vehicles. And so, I started my career through a co-op experience and then an internship experience. And I really appreciated the challenges of a B2B space. I was able to progress in my career by gaining different experiences, all within the same company, just moving around either in different functions or different businesses, and have continued to grow underneath the same umbrella of a company, but with drastically different experiences. So that's how I've built my career.
And I've had a quite different path. So in case it's not clear, I am ridiculously passionate about science and math. So I pursued my engineering degree. And then what's really interesting about Trane is Trane actually hires students out of college with engineering backgrounds to go into sales roles, because they think that having that technical background is so valuable. You solve problems and think about things in just completely different ways. So I started my career with Trane, and I'm what we refer to sometimes as a Trane boomerang. It's a common thing because so many people start with the company and may go off and experience other things. And then this company has such a unique culture that people come back. And so I tested out small companies, large companies, medium companies, for-profit companies, privately held companies, all in the construction space, very male-dominated field, HVAC and lighting, and just kind of fell in love with building systems and the things that we can do with controls. Just thinking about the fact that we have technology that was available 6, 8, 10 months ago that we weren't using for contact tracing, but that today, okay, we can use this for contact tracing, and we have a problem that we can solve using technology. And so, really being passionate about what you do and being excited and working in an environment that allows you to be creative and innovative and solving problems. I think that's what we all do for our careers. We're all problem solvers. We're all creative specialists. We just use our passions and our skill set in different areas. And so I've just followed construction and HVAC and lighting for the past 15 years, and I love it.
That's just fabulous. It's great to see the passion and that you followed your dreams. So that's great. So I wanted to say thank you again to Kandice and Leigh. It's so informative. Thank you for joining us and taking the time today to be with us. It is our hope to have you on our main stage at our virtual conference November 17th, Tech Up for Women. So till then, we look forward to having you, and we will chat soon. Have a great week.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Take care.